Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. It's the beginning of the 2022 baseball season, and I am here to provide you and everybody else something that nobody has asked for. A list of the top 10 baseball card sets ever created. What might be the criteria for this pretentious list, you might ask? I'm so glad you asked. So there's two primary criteria. One is the design of the card itself, and the other is the feel for the game. Those are the top two. So, for example, Mike Trout catch here. So it blends well with the design of the card. The design doesn't get in the way. Pretty cool action shot there. That or a Ken Griffey Jr. shot from a couple decades before that. Very cool stuff. A cool celebration kind of design here. Even a celebratory bat flip. Pretty snazzy stuff there. And then the feel for the game. Like, do you have feel like you have to spit out some infield dirt after a play at the plate, or maybe even, I don't know, spit out a couple of teeth after a play at the plate? Who knows? At the other end of the spectrum, it's not so much action, not a feel for the game. In fact, it's all about the design, and the design is kind of drab. So, you've got just a lot of words, a whole bunch of border, a really dull color. You've got something like, hey, let's just stick some, I don't know, color that has nothing to do with the team around the border and stick some generic hat at the bottom. It's like they took a day off or something. This one says, hey, I'm a baseball player. Nothing to see here. Not a really great design. Or way at the other end of the spectrum, you've got, it's like a unicorn just barfed all over the card and didn't even have the courtesy of eating the team colors before doing so. So it's like, this is like nothing like the team. That doesn't look like Red Sox colors, and why is it all words and no picture? The design isn't right for the uniform even. I mean, who was thinking about this? So again, ends of the spectrum, you've got action, excitement of the game, or I failed watercoloring in kindergarten. So the next criteria after those top two is the scarcity of the set. So that kind of excludes a lot of the 90s sets because they overproduced greatly. Everyone was competing, throwing out a whole bunch of sets, and they're just worth nothing. So this isn't about the money or anything like that, but if they're like disposable cards, it's less exciting. And the last criteria, again, just a little bit sprinkled in, is which players are in the set. There are some years, like Joe DiMaggio, for example, he's hardly in any sets. So that would make it a more valuable set than, say, something from the 90s where every player has a card, 8 cards or more each season. So those are the criteria for the top 10 sets of all time, judged by me and nobody else. Thank you very much. Coming in at number 10 is a 1913 set. Is actually in the format of a card game. Not a baseball card game, but an actual card game. It looks like a deck of cards. And it has some tough-to-get players. So, for example, this is my Ty Cobb card. This is the only Ty Cobb card I have of him during his playing days. So the criteria of tough-to-get players, this is a set that has that. But also the design is pretty clean. It's a little weird for the modern day card because you have all this gameplay stuff around it, but it doesn't really get in the way too much. And you miss out on the stats and everything. They were just trying to figure out what a baseball card was back then. So you don't have stats and stories and all that kind of stuff on the back of the card. You just have, the back of the card like a deck of cards. This is where my Honus Wagner card, the only one I probably will ever have, is in this set. And this is pretty crazy. So there's two different things you can have. I guess it's the orientation. I have no idea how you played this game, but you can get a triple play with a Honus Wagner card. That's pretty amazing. So the T206 card of Honus Wagner, You probably have heard of it, but that's like the holy grail of baseball cards, and it goes for 7 figures when it sells. And I'm never going to have one of those, but I actually prefer this in a way because it's a picture of Honus Wagner, not a painting that may or may not look like him. And then last but not least in my set is Cy Young card. However, I had to cheat a little for Cy Young because even though there are some cards of him before he retired, none of them are really good pictures. Most of them are paintings. The few pictures are really not good or super expensive, and I'm not into super expensive. So this one's a little bit of a cheat because it's a 1913 card and he retired in 1911. So I'm going to use it anyway. It's a cheat. You can't judge me because I'm not going to listen, and I don't have to because this is my video and I can't hear you. Another thing about the 1913 Tom Barker game is cards that I don't have, but I can get some stock photos to include here. You do have action shots. So you have the feel for the game. You see how the game was played back then. The design is pretty clean. It doesn't get in the way of itself, even with the words around the edges. And then, of course, you have the tough to find players. So that's pretty good. And it's a pretty scarce set. So it hits the marks pretty well. So coming in at number 10, the 1913 Tom Barker card game set.